Did you hear it clearly? Did you hear the call? In the whispering silence, in the quiet of the night, in the darkness of the night, in the silence of the night, did you hear the call? The mother carried her child back to the stagecoach. The girl was sleeping, yet clutching her covered basket. She was sick with a cold, but held tight to her duckling. The other disinterested passengers got back on the stage too. The stage left the last rest area stop for the day and headed on. There were 2 more hours of traveling left to get to the next relay station. The stage would get there shortly before dark. The girl slept the whole time. At the relay station, the girl woke up sick and cranky. When she looked into her basket, she saw that the duckling was gone. She started crying, and the mother looked distressed. The child must have let the duckling out before she fell asleep at the rest area. The other passengers did not care much for the crying. One passenger said the duckling is better off back with nature. The mother told her child she would get her another duckling. The child continued to cry and started to cough. The passenger named John observed the scene and then decided he would ride back to the rest area 2 hours away and find the duckling for the little girl. The station had some extra horses. He would borrow one. The passenger said it was starting to get dark. It made no sense to go out that far in the approaching night. John said the moon should be out a good part of the time. He would be back in time to sleep on the stage in the morning. Did you hear it clearly? Did you hear the call? In the whispering silence, in the quiet of the night, in the darkness of the night, in the silence of the night, did you hear the call? John rode off while the sun was preparing to set. By the time he got to the rest area, it was night. For a second, he feared that he arrived at the wrong place and was lost. But in the moonlight, he saw that it was the place. He left the horse a short distance away from the site, so that the snorting of the horse would not prevent his hearing the duckling. Then he stopped at various places within the rest area and listened intently for the sound of the duckling. He stopped and listened for what seemed like hours. Just when the feeling of a foolish lost cause started to hit him, he heard the tiniest of sounds of the duckling. At this time the moon was hidden. He was in darkness. He walked toward the sound and tripped on a root. His body went head first into a crevice in the earth. The hole pinned his arms while his legs flailed. Next to his head, he could hear the duckling. Trying to free himself by using his legs, he slid deeper in the hole. He was stuck, with the duckling quacking somewhere near his ear. He stayed in that position for hours, thinking he would die because of an act of utter foolishness. He may have passed out. He lost track of time. Then a big, strong hand grabbed his belt and with a jerk heaved him out of the hole onto the ground. The big, strong hand belonged to a short Indian. The first thing John did was go back to the hole for the duckling, and with painful arms put the duckling in the basket left with the horse. The Indian observed this in the shifting darkness and moonlight. He started to laugh when John finally thanked him. Did you hear it clearly? Did you hear the call? In the whispering silence, in the quiet of the night, in the darkness of the night, in the silence of the night, Did you hear the call? The passengers were up with the morning sun and had just eaten. They were looking out in the direction John had gone, talking about his foolishness. Out in the distance they could see 2 horses and 1 rider. The horse with no rider was the one John took from the relay station. The rider of the other horse was a tall Indian. In his hand he held a basket with the duckling. When he got to the relay station, he extended the basket to the child, talking in his native language and nodding his head in several directions. The passengers wondered what happened to John. The mother took the basket and offered the Indian food. The Indian ate the food at a table outside with a high degree of gratitude, talking in his language and motioning with his arms. The passengers feared that John had died. Perhaps the Indian was not as friendly as he seemed. Different theories were suggested. Just then, a trapper arrived to get some supplies from the station master. The trapper noticed everyone that was there and greeted all as he passed them. When he grasped what the discussion was about, he turned back. He said he knew the language of the Indian at the table. He would ask him what happened to the rider of the horse. Did you hear it clearly? Did you hear the call? In the whispering silence, in the quiet of the night, in the darkness of the night, in the silence of the night, did you hear the call? The Indian spoke to the trapper in his animated fashion. The trapper listened intently and asked questions. The passengers grew restless, waiting for the details. The stage drivers were curious and patient, but started to worry about falling behind schedule. Referring to the Indian, the trapper said his friend helped the white man. The white man and his friend started talking about sounds they heard in the darkness. They both heard a quiet that they did not understand. They could only describe it as a whispering call. The 2 of them decided to head for the nearby mountains together. They asked the tall Indian to bring back the duckling and the horse. The passengers asked the trapper what they would find in the mountains. The trapper said there were only a couple of empty mines and an old mission. Besides, a fire turned the trees on one side of the mountain into charred posts. The green was just slowly coming back this spring. The girl with the duckling was feeling a lot better now. The passengers got disinterested again and got back on the stage. Did you hear it clearly? Did you hear the call? In the whispering silence, in the quiet of the night, in the darkness of the night, in the silence of the night, did you hear the call?